Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Trevor stood in my living room, his arms crossed, not asking, telling. Brianna, Harper, Gavin, and her mother are moving in. I know it'll be crowded, but we've decided this is the best solution for everyone. I sat in my late husband's old armchair, the one I'd reupholstered 3 times because I couldn't bear to part with it, and stared at my son. My 42-year-old son who was standing in my house, in my living room that I'd painted myself last spring, announcing that 5 people were moving into my 3-bedroom home without so much as asking if I minded. You've decided? My voice came out quieter than I intended. Look, Mom, you're here all alone in this big house. It's just sitting here. We're struggling with rent in the city, and Brianna's mother needs help after her hip surgery. You're retired, you have all this space, and honestly, we could use your help with the kids. It's the logical solution. Logical? He said it was logical to take over my home. Trevor, this is my house. Your father and I bought this house in 1985. We raised you here. I worked as a nurse for 37 years, night shifts, double shifts, holidays, to pay for this house. This is my home. He sighed, that particular sigh he'd perfected as a teenager, the one that said I was being difficult. Mom, don't be selfish. Family helps family. You always told me that growing up. Remember when you took in Aunt Peggy when she lost her job? You always said family comes first. I invited Peggy, for 3 months. She didn't announce she was moving in permanently with 4 other people. It's not permanent, just until we get back on our feet. A year, maybe 2. And honestly, at your age, having people around would be good for you. You shouldn't be living alone anyway. At my age. I was 68 years old, not decrepit. I walked 3 miles every morning. I volunteered at the community center. I had a book club, a garden, and friends who actually valued my company. But to Trevor, I was just old, expendable, useful only for what I could provide. When are you planning this move? I asked carefully. 1st of next month. We've already given notice on our apartment. Brianna's mother's physical therapist said she needs a ground floor bedroom, so she'll take yours. You can move upstairs to the small bedroom. The kids can share the other bedroom upstairs, and Brianna and I will take the master. My bedroom. The bedroom I'd shared with Harold for 34 years until cancer took him 5 years ago. The bedroom where I still kept his reading glasses on the nightstand. They were giving it away like it meant nothing. And you didn't think to ask me first? Trevor's face hardened. Mom, I'm not asking. This is happening. We're your family. This is what families do. I thought you'd be happy to have your grandchildren around. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, whom I'd sacrificed so much for. And I barely recognized him. When had he become this person? This entitled, demanding stranger who saw me not as his mother, but as a resource to exploit. Trevor, I need time to think about this. There's nothing to think about. We're moving in on November 1st. That's 3 weeks away. I'm telling you now as a courtesy so you can prepare. Maybe box up some of Dad's stuff from the garage, clear out some closet space. A courtesy. He thought this was a courtesy. He left then, not waiting for my response, as if my agreement was irrelevant. I sat in Harold's chair for a long time after he left, my hands shaking. I thought about calling him back, apologizing, being the agreeable mother I'd always been. Wasn't that what good mothers did? Put their children's needs first? But then I thought about my house, my sanctuary, my independence. I thought about Brianna's mother, whom I'd met twice and who'd criticized my cooking both times. I thought about losing my bedroom, my space, my peace. I thought about becoming a live-in maid and babysitter in my own home. And I thought about Harold, who'd worked construction for 40 years to help pay off this house. Who'd always said, Dot, this is our castle. Nobody takes a person's castle. Trevor thought I was the same submissive mother who would sacrifice everything for her children. He thought my age made me weak, that I'd just accept his decision because I was too old and tired to fight. He was wrong. But what they didn't know was that I had already been planning. They didn't know that this 68-year-old woman had one more card to play. They didn't know what I'd discovered 2 weeks ago, or what I'd already set in motion. Let me tell you how this really started. It was a Tuesday morning, October 8th, and I was having my usual breakfast on the back porch. Oatmeal with blueberries and a cup of Earl Grey tea. The autumn air was crisp, and the maple tree Harold had planted when Trevor was born was putting on its annual show of red and gold. My phone buzzed with the morning WhatsApp messages from my friend group, 5 women I'd met at the community center's senior fitness class 3 years ago. We called ourselves the Golden Girls, though technically we ranged from 63 to 74. Lorraine: Morning ladies, beautiful day for our walk, same time? Beverly: Can't today, granddaughter's school play, tomorrow? Shirley: I'm in for the walk. You coming? I typed back, wouldn't miss it, 9 a.m. at Riverside Park? Lorraine: Perfect. Rita: You're awfully quiet. Rita: Sorry, dealing with son drama. He wants to borrow $5,000. Again. Shirley: Oh, honey, not again. Didn't he just borrow money last month? Rita: Yes, and the month before. I'm running out of savings. I stared at that message, feeling a familiar knot in my stomach. Trevor had asked me for money 3 times in the past 6 months. $500 in April for unexpected car repairs. $1,000 in July for emergency dental work for Gavin. $1,500 in September for back rent because his job had temporarily cut his hours. I'd given him the money every time. He was my son. That's what mothers did, right? But Harold's voice echoed in my head. Charity and foolishness ain't the same thing, An hour later, I met Lorraine at the park entrance. She was wearing her bright purple tracksuit. Lorraine always said life was too short for boring clothes. So, what's this son drama with Rita? I asked as we started our walk along the river path. Lorraine shook her head. Her boy Kevin is 45 years old and still treating her like an ATM. It's gotten worse since his divorce. She's already given him probably $20,000 over the past 2 years. That's terrible. Honey, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I've noticed Trevor asking you for money too. I felt defensive immediately. Just a few times. And he always says he'll pay me back. Lorraine stopped walking and looked at me with those sharp hazel eyes that missed nothing. She'd been a social worker for 30 years before retiring. Has he? Paid you back? The silence was my answer. Sweetheart, I'm not trying to upset you, but I've seen this pattern before, in my work and in my own family. My nephew pulled the same thing with my sister. Started with small loans, then bigger ones. Then he was living in her house rent-free and treating her like hired help in her own home. Trevor wouldn't do that. I hope you're right, but promise me you'll be careful, okay? You worked too hard for too long to let anyone take advantage of you, even your own child. We finished our walk, but Lorraine's words stuck with me like a splinter. That afternoon I did something I'd never done before. I looked through my bank statements, really looked at them. April: $500 to Trevor. July: $1,000 to Trevor. September: $1,500 to Trevor. But there was more. I found other withdrawals I'd forgotten about. February: $800. Trevor needed new tires. December 2023, $1,200. Trevor's Christmas crisis. October 2023, $600. Trevor's medical bill. Over the past year, I'd given Trevor $5,600. He hadn't paid back a single dollar. And my savings account, which had once held $48,000 from Harold's life insurance and my careful saving, now showed $39,000. I felt sick. Not because of the money itself, but because I'd been so blind, so willing to believe every excuse. That evening, Trevor called. Hey, Mom, how are you? I'm fine, honey. How are the kids? They're good. Listen, I was hoping to come by this weekend. Bring the family, maybe have dinner. Something in his tone made my radar ping. That would be lovely. Sunday work? Perfect. Actually, Mom, there's something I wanted to discuss with you about living arrangements. My hand tightened on the phone. Living arrangements? Yeah, we'll talk about it Sunday. Nothing to worry about. Love you, Mom. He hung up before I could respond. I sat, there in my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd packed Trevor's school lunches for 13 years, where I'd taught him to make pancakes, where Harold and I had shared our morning coffee for 3 decades. And for the first time, I felt afraid. Not of being alone. I'd made peace with that after Harold died. But afraid of losing my home, my independence, my dignity. I picked up my phone and texted Lorraine, "Can you talk? I think I might need help." She called immediately. I told her about Trevor's call, about the money, about the creeping feeling that something was very wrong. "Dot," she said carefully, "I think you need to protect yourself. Legally." "Legally? He's my son." "Exactly. That's why he thinks he can do whatever he wants." "Look, my friend Vincent Torres is an estate attorney. He's helped me with my own planning, and he's worked with several people dealing with difficult family situations. Would you be willing to talk to him? Just to understand your options?" "I don't know." "Dot, you don't have to do anything. Just have the information. Knowledge is power, sweetheart. And right now, I have a feeling you're going to need all the power you can get." The next morning, I sat in Vincent Torres's office. It was a small practice on Main Street, above the bakery. Mr. Torres was maybe 60, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Mrs. Wilkinson, Lorraine speaks very highly of you. Please tell me what's going on." I told him everything. The money, the phone call, my fears about Sunday's dinner. He listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Wilkinson, may I call you Dorothy?" "Dot, please." "Dot, I'm going to be direct with you because I think you deserve honesty. What you're describing sounds like the beginning of a pattern I see too often. Adult children who feel entitled to their parents' assets while the parents are still living. Sometimes it's motivated by financial desperation, sometimes by pure greed, often by both. But Trevor is my son. I want to help him." "Of course you do. And helping is wonderful. But there's a difference between helping and being exploited. Let me ask you something. Is this house in your name only?" "Yes. Harold and I owned it jointly, and when he passed, it transferred to me." "Good. Is it paid off?" "Yes, we made the final payment in 2010. "Even better. Do you have a will?" I shifted uncomfortably. "Yes, from 15 years ago. Everything goes to Trevor." Mr. Torres nodded. "Have you given Trevor power of attorney?" "No." "Thank goodness for that at least. Dot, here's what I recommend, and you're under no obligation to do any of this. But I want you to understand your options. First, we should update your will. You can specify exactly how you want your estate divided, and you can include conditions. Second, we should create a living trust to protect your assets. Third, and this is crucial, we need to document everything, every financial transaction, every conversation about money or housing." "That seems so adversarial, like I don't trust my own son." His expression was gentle but firm. "Dot, does Trevor's behavior warrant your trust right now?" I thought about the $5,600, the lies about paying me back, the vague mention of living arrangements. "No," I whispered, "I don't think it does." "Then let's make sure you're protected. You don't have to show hostility or confrontation. We're simply ensuring that your assets, the home and money you worked your entire life for, remain yours to control. That's not wrong, Dot. That's wisdom." I spent 2 hours in his office that day. We outlined a new will. I learned about living trusts and how they could protect my house from being claimed or forced into sale. Mr. Torres explained medical directives and financial power of attorney, warning me never to give those documents to anyone who had shown they couldn't be trusted with my money. "I'll draft everything this week," he said as I prepared to leave. "But Dot, one more thing. Start documenting. Dates, amounts, conversations. If Trevor does try to move into your house or pressure you for money, I want you to have evidence of everything. Use your phone to record conversations if you're in a one-party consent state, which Virginia is, by the way. Save text messages. Email yourself notes after every interaction. If this goes wrong, documentation will be your best friend." I left his office feeling strange, empowered but also guilty, as if I were betraying my son by protecting myself. But Lorraine met me for lunch afterward and set me straight. "You're not betraying anyone," she said firmly, pointing her fork at me for emphasis. "You're taking care of yourself. That's not selfish, Dot. That's self-respect. You raised your child. You don't owe him your entire life savings and your home." That Sunday, Trevor arrived with Brianna and the kids at 1 p.m. I'd made pot roast, just like I used to make when Trevor was growing up. Harper and Gavin ran to hug me. Those hugs were genuine, at least. At 8 and 5, they still loved their Grandma Dot unconditionally. We ate dinner first. Brianna barely touched the food, just pushed it around her plate while checking her phone. Trevor ate quickly, distracted. I tried to enjoy playing with the kids, helping Harper with a puzzle while little Gavin showed me his toy trucks. After dinner, Trevor sent the kids to play in the living room and asked Brianna to keep an eye on them. Then he sat down at the kitchen table with me, his expression serious. "Mom, we need to talk about your future." My future, not his, as if I were the one with the problem. "I'm listening." "Brianna and I are struggling. You know the economy has been tough. My job isn't as stable as it used to be, and with 2 kids, the expenses are overwhelming. We're paying $2,200 a month for a tiny 2-bedroom apartment in the city. It's not sustainable." "I'm sorry you're struggling, honey. I really am." And then there's Brianna's mother, Linda. She had hip surgery last month, and she's going to need help for at least 6 months, maybe longer. She can't live alone, and we can't afford to pay for assisted living. It's $8,000 a month for a decent place. I waited. Here it came. "Mom, you have this big house, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, that finished basement, and you're here all alone. It doesn't make sense." "Trevor, this is my home." He leaned forward, his voice taking on that persuasive tone he used when he wanted something. "I know, Mom, and it would still be your home. We'd just share it. Think about it. You'd have your grandkids around every day. You wouldn't be lonely. We could help with maintenance, yard work, and you wouldn't have to worry about something happening to you with nobody around." "I'm not worried about that. I have friends. I have my routines." "Mom, you're almost 70. You need to be realistic. What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency? Having family in the house would be safer." There it was, the subtle suggestion that I was too old, too fragile to live independently. Never mind that I was in better health than Trevor, who'd gained 40 pounds and got winded walking upstairs. "I appreciate your concern," I said carefully, "but I'm quite capable of living on my own." His face hardened. "Mom, I'm not really asking. This is the only solution that makes sense for everyone. We can't keep throwing away money on rent. Linda needs help, and frankly, you owe us this." "I owe you?" "Yes, you owe me. Do you know how much you and Dad spent on my sister when she was in college? $30,000. And what did I get? Nothing. You paid for her sorority, her study abroad, everything. I got community college and student loans. So yes, you owe me." My sister. He meant my daughter, Rebecca, who died in a car accident when Trevor was 21. Beautiful, brilliant Rebecca, who'd earned a full academic scholarship, but whose sorority and study abroad we'd paid for because we wanted her to have every opportunity. Rebecca, who'd been gone for 22 years, and Trevor was still resentful. "Trevor, your sister's choices don't mean—" "Don't defend her. She's gone. I'm here. I'm your only child now, and I need help. We're moving in at the end of next month. I'm giving you notice now so you can prepare." Not asking, telling. "And if I say no?" His expression turned cold, a look I'd never seen from my son before. "Then I guess you're choosing a house over your family. Is that really how you want to spend your final years? Alone, estranged from your only child and grandchildren?" It was a threat. A blatant, ugly threat. I stood up from the table, my legs shaking, but my voice steady. "Trevor, I think you and your family should go home now. We can discuss this another time." "There's nothing to discuss. We're moving in November 1st. I already gave notice on our apartment." "You gave notice without asking me first?" "I told you, I'm not asking. This is happening. You raised me to believe family comes first, Mom. Don't be a hypocrite now." He stood, called for Brianna and the kids, and left. Just like that. Didn't even let the children say goodbye properly. Gavin was crying because he hadn't finished showing me all his trucks. I stood in my kitchen, dishes still on the table, and realized that my son, my baby boy whom I'd held as he took his first breath, was attempting to steal my home. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd assumed I was powerless. That night, I called an emergency meeting of the Golden Girls. Everyone except Beverly, who was with her granddaughter, gathered at Lorraine's house. I told them everything, my voice breaking several times. Rita gripped my hand. "Oh, Dot, I'm so sorry. This is exactly what's been happening to me, just faster." Shirley, who'd been a paralegal before retiring, shook her head in disgust. "He's attempting to establish residency. Once he moves in, it'll be incredibly difficult to get him out. In Virginia, after 30 days, he'd have tenant rights even without a lease. That's why we stop him before he moves in," Lorraine said firmly. "Dot, did you talk to Vincent?" "Yes, I have an appointment tomorrow to sign the new documents." "Good. Now here's what else you need to do." Lorraine pulled out a notebook. She was always organized. "Document everything. Save every text message. Record phone calls if he calls again. Write down exactly what he said today with dates and times. If he shows up, don't let him in without witnesses present." "He's my son. I can't just—" "Yes, you can," Rita interrupted gently. "Dot, I've let Kevin walk all over me for years because he's my son. I'm broke now. I might lose my condo because I've given him so much money. Don't make my mistakes." Shirley nodded. "And Dot, you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. When entitled people don't get what they want, they escalate. He might badmouth you to other family members. He might threaten to keep the grandkids away. He might even try to claim you're mentally incompetent." I felt cold. "He wouldn't." "He might," Lorraine said quietly. "I've seen it happen. But that's why we're going to make sure you're protected. Vincent will help with the legal side. We'll help with everything else. You're not alone in this, Dot." I cried then, overwhelmed by their support and terrified of what was coming. But underneath the fear, I felt something else stirring. Anger. Clean, bright anger at being manipulated and disrespected in my own home. The next day, I signed the new will at Mr. Torres's office. The old will had left everything to Trevor in a lump sum. The new will was more complex. "I've set up a trust," Mr. Torres explained. "Your house will go into the trust upon your death. Trevor will receive 50% of the value, but only after the house is sold at fair market value, with the proceeds, managed by the trustee, in this case a bank. The other 50% will be divided equally between Harper and Gavin, held in trust until they turn 25. So Trevor can't force them to let him live there or try to take their inheritance." "Correct. He can't touch the children's portions, and his portion comes as controlled payments over time, not as a lump sum. I've also included a clause that if he contests the will or attempts to claim you were mentally incompetent when you signed it, he forfeits his share entirely." "Is that legal?" "Absolutely. It's called a no contest clause, and it's quite common in situations like yours. I'm also having you do a cognitive assessment today. Just a simple evaluation with Dr. Patricia Newman, a geriatric psychiatrist. She'll document that you're of sound mind, understand your decisions, and are not under duress." The assessment took an hour. Dr. Newman asked me questions about current events, had me do some memory tests, discussed my daily activities and decision-making. At the end, she smiled. "Mrs. Wilkinson, your cognitive function is excellent. Above average for your age, actually. I'll prepare a detailed report for Mr. Torres documenting your mental competence." "Do a lot of people need this?" Her smile faded. "Unfortunately, yes. Adult children claiming their parents are incompetent to seize control of assets is more common than you'd think. It's a form of elder abuse, and it's on the rise." Elder abuse. My son was attempting to abuse me. Over the next week, Trevor called 3 times. I let every call go to voicemail, saving each message. Message 1. "Mom, I hope you're not still upset about Sunday. We need to start coordinating the move. Call me back. Message 2. Mom, seriously, we need to talk logistics. I need to know which bedroom Linda will use so I can start planning furniture. Call me. Message 3. Mom, I don't appreciate being ignored. I'm your son, we're family. Whatever attitude you've got going on needs to stop. I'll be by Thursday to discuss moving plans. I played the messages for Mr. Torres. Perfect, he said. Keep saving all of these, and when he comes by Thursday, I want you to tell him clearly, with witnesses present, that he does not have your permission to move in. Can you do that? Could I? Could I look my son in the eye and refuse him? I thought about Harold, about the 40 years we'd worked to build our life. I thought about my nursing career, the night shifts I'd worked through exhaustion, the patients I'd cared for. I thought about my independence, my peace, my right to my own home. Yes, I said. I can do that. Thursday afternoon, Trevor arrived without warning. I was in the garden, pruning the roses. He walked around the side of the house without knocking. Mom, we need to talk. Give me a minute to clean up. I went inside, quickly texted Lorraine and Shirley. Trevor here, come now if you can. Then I set my phone on the kitchen counter with the recording app running. When I came back out, Trevor was sitting on the porch steps, looking impatient. Trevor, you can't just show up without calling first. I tried calling. You didn't answer. Look, we need to finalize the moving plans. I've got the U-Haul reserved for November 1st. I need keys copied. And we need to discuss house rules. Like, Linda can't do stairs, so she definitely needs the main floor bedroom. And we'll need to clear out the basement for storage. Trevor, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. Mom, I don't have time for... You don't have my permission to move in. Silence. He stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. What? You don't have my permission to move into my house. I'm saying no. His face reddened. Are you serious right now? You're joking. I'm not joking. This is my home. I didn't give you permission to move in, and I'm not going to. You need to find another solution for your family. He stood up, and for the first time in my life, I felt intimidated by my own son. He was 6'2", nearly 240 pounds, towering over my 5'4" frame. You're being incredibly selfish. Do you understand that? We're family. We need help, and you're refusing us because of what? Because you want to keep your precious house to yourself? Because this is my home, and I have the right to my own space. After everything I've given you, after all the times I've come over to fix things, mow the lawn, help you with your computer, you owe me. Coming over 6 times in 5 years to mow the lawn doesn't entitle you to my house, Trevor. His expression turned ugly. Fine. You want to be alone? You want to be the selfish old woman who chooses a house over her grandchildren? Fine. But don't expect to see Harper and Gavin anymore. If you're not going to be part of this family, then you don't get to be their grandmother. My heart cracked, using my grandchildren as weapons. But I stood firm. That's your choice, Trevor, but you're still not moving in. We'll see about that. You're not thinking clearly, Mom. Maybe you shouldn't be living alone. Maybe you need someone to look after you. It was a direct threat to try to have me declared incompetent. Hello, Dorothy. Lorraine's voice rang out from the driveway. She and Shirley walked into the backyard, both wearing bright smiles. We brought that recipe you wanted. Oh, Trevor, how nice to see you. Trevor's expression shifted, aware of the witnesses. Lorraine, Shirley, I was just leaving. Mom, we'll continue this conversation later. There's nothing more to discuss, I said firmly. He left, and I collapsed into a patio chair, shaking. Lorraine and Shirley sat on either side of me. You did it, Shirley said. You actually did it. Did you record it? Lorraine asked. I nodded. Every word. Good. Because that threat about the grandchildren and the suggestion you're not thinking clearly, that's important evidence. If he tries anything legal. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Harper and Gavin, about not seeing them grow up. But I also thought about what would happen if I let Trevor move in. He'd take over my house. Brianna would rearrange everything. Linda would criticize how I kept my home. The kids would be lovely, but they'd be Trevor's leverage forever. I'd become a servant in my own home, and when I died, Trevor would sell the house and spend the money in 5 years. No. I'd done the right thing. But the hard part was just beginning. The next week was strange. Trevor didn't call, no texts, no voicemails, nothing. It was almost worse than the confrontations. Then, on a Wednesday morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Wilkinson, this is Sandra Peterson from Adult Protective Services. We received a report concerning your well-being, and I'd like to schedule a home visit." My blood ran cold. A report? From whom? "I'm not at liberty to say, but someone expressed concern that you may be living in unsafe conditions and might need assistance." Trevor. He'd actually done it. Filed a false report to try to claim I was incompetent or unsafe. "Ms. Peterson, I assure you I'm perfectly fine. But I'll be happy to have you visit. Would Friday morning work?" "That would be perfect. I'll see you at 10 a.m. I immediately called Mr. Torres and told him what happened. "This is good, actually," he said. "Let her come. Your house is immaculate, you're clearly competent, and this will create a record that the report was false. Make sure you tell her about the family conflict so she understands this is a weaponization of the system. And Dot, have a friend there when she visits." Friday morning, Lorraine and I cleaned the house from top to bottom. Not that it needed much. I'd always kept a tidy home. Lorraine stayed for the visit, introducing herself as my close friend. Sandra Peterson was a tired-looking woman in her 40s with kind eyes. She walked through the house, noting the cleanliness, the functioning utilities, the stocked kitchen. She asked me questions about my health, my daily activities, my mental state. "Mrs. Wilkinson, I have to say, I'm not seeing any concerns here. Your home is well maintained, you're clearly capable of self-care, and you seem mentally sharp." "Thank you. Ms. Peterson, I need to be honest with you about why this report was likely filed." I told her about Trevor, about his attempt to move in without permission, about his threats when I refused. She sighed. "Unfortunately, we see this a lot. Adult children weaponizing our services against parents who won't comply with their demands. I'll be noting in my report that this appears to be a malicious filing. I'm sorry you're going through this, Mrs. Wilkinson." After she left, Lorraine hugged me. "He made a mistake. Now there's an official record that he tried to weaponize the system against you." But Trevor wasn't done. That Sunday, I went to church, like I did every week. Afterward, several people I'd known for years gave me cold looks. Martha Henderson, whom I'd been friends with for 15 years, actually walked past without speaking. Finally, George Crawford, one of the deacons, pulled me aside. "Dorothy, I don't want to pry, but is everything okay with you and Trevor? We're having some family disagreements. Why?" He looked uncomfortable. "Trevor was here earlier this week. He spoke to several of us, expressing concern about you. He said you've been confused lately, making poor decisions, and he's worried about your mental health. He implied you might be developing dementia." I felt like I'd been punched. "George, I don't have dementia. I had a cognitive assessment last week. I'm perfectly sound. Trevor is upset because I won't let him move into my house without my permission, and he's lying about me to turn people against me." George's expression cleared. I thought there might be more to the story. Trevor always did have a way of spinning things to his advantage, even as a kid. I remember when he borrowed money from the church youth group fund and claimed he'd gotten confused about whether he'd paid it back. He did that? In 10th grade, your husband made him work it off doing maintenance. You really don't remember? I'd forgotten. Or maybe I'd never known. Harold had handled it. "Dorothy, for what it's worth, you seem completely fine to me. I'll talk to the others, set them straight." But the damage was done. Trevor had started a whisper campaign, trying to destroy my reputation in my own community. That night, I sat in Harold's chair and cried. Not gentle tears, but deep, racking sobs. My son was trying to take everything from me, my home, my dignity, my reputation, my place in my community. But then I thought about what Lorraine had said. When entitled people don't get what they want, they escalate. Trevor was escalating, which meant he was desperate, which meant my refusal was working. I dried my tears, made a cup of tea, and opened my laptop. I wrote down everything that had happened. The APS call, the church situation, the timeline of Trevor's lies. I emailed it to Mr. Torres. His response came within an hour. Document everything. We're building a case not just to protect you, but to prove a pattern of manipulation and attempted exploitation. Keep doing what you're doing. You're stronger than he thinks. Stronger than he thinks. Yes, I was. November 1st came and went. The day Trevor had planned to move in. I spent it peacefully, working in my garden, having lunch with the Golden Girls, reading on my porch. My phone rang 14 times. I didn't answer. Finally, on November 3rd, Trevor showed up again. This time, he brought Brianna. They knocked on the door. I let them in. On my terms, with my phone recording in my pocket and Lorraine in her car down the street, ready to come if I texted. "Mom, we need to talk like adults," Trevor started. "I agree. Please sit down." Brianna looked around my living room with obvious disdain. "This furniture is so dated. It's my furniture, in my house." "Mom," Trevor said, using his most reasonable voice, "we gave up our apartment. We're staying with Brianna's sister right now, and it's not sustainable. You're putting your grandchildren through hell because of your stubbornness. I'm not the one who gave up an apartment without having another place secured. We had another place. This house. You said yes." "I never said yes, Trevor. You announced you were moving in. I refused. Those are very different things." Brianna leaned forward. "Mrs. Wilkinson, do you understand how much money we've lost because of you? Our deposit, moving expenses, storage fees, we're out almost $4,000. That's unfortunate, but it's not my responsibility. You made decisions without my consent." "We're family," Trevor shouted, standing up. "This is what families do. They help each other." "Help, yes. Let themselves be exploited, no. Trevor, I've given you $5,600 in the past year. You haven't paid back a single dollar. You're not asking for help. You're demanding complete access to my home and my resources." He stared at me. "You've been keeping track, counting every dollar like some kind of accountant?" "Yes, I have. Because you kept saying you'd pay me back, and you never did. Because you lied to me, repeatedly." "I didn't lie. Circumstances changed. You lied. About the car, about the dental work, about the rent. I called your landlord Trevor. You weren't behind on rent. You were being evicted for noise complaints and property damage." His face went white. "You called my landlord?" "I did. Once I started actually checking your stories. The dental work? I called Gavin's dentist. He had a simple cleaning, covered by insurance. There was no emergency. You're investigating me? Your own son? What kind of mother? The kind who finally realized she was being lied to and manipulated. The kind who worked too hard for too long to let anyone, including her son, steal from her." Brianna stood up. "This is insane. You're being completely unreasonable. We're family, and you're treating us like criminals." "No, I'm treating you like adults who need to solve your own problems. I raised Trevor. I clothed him, fed him, educated him, loved him. I don't owe him my house or my life savings." "Fine," Trevor said coldly. "If that's how you feel, then you're not our family anymore. We're done. Don't expect to see your grandchildren again." It hurt. God, it hurt. But I stood firm. If you choose to weaponize those children against me, that's your choice, but it doesn't change my answer. They left. I sat down, shaking, and texted Lorraine. "They're gone. I need you." She was there in 5 minutes, and I collapsed into her arms. "I don't know if I can do this," I sobbed. "Yes, you can. You just did. Dot, you were magnificent. I might never see Harper and Gavin again. Trevor is angry right now, but children aren't property. They grow up. They make their own choices, and someday they'll understand what really happened, and they'll remember their grandmother who loved them enough to protect herself." Maybe. but it was a cold comfort in the moment. 2 weeks later, I got a certified letter. It was from a lawyer, not Mr. Torres, someone else. A demand letter, claiming that I had promised Trevor he could live in my house, that he'd relied on this promise to his financial detriment, and that I was now liable for his losses. They demanded $10,000 in damages, or they'd file suit. I took the letter to Mr. Torres immediately. He read it and smiled. Actually, smiled. This is good. Good? They're suing me. They're threatening to sue you, which is different. And this letter is evidence of Trevor's continuing harassment. Let me respond. He drafted a response that day, polite but firm, stating that I had never agreed to let Trevor move in, that all conversations had been recorded and documented, that his claims were false, and that any lawsuit would be vigorously defended. He also mentioned that we had evidence of Trevor's pattern of financial manipulation and his weaponization of adult protective services. The response included a small surprise, a cease and desist demand that Trevor stop spreading false claims about my mental competence, or we would pursue defamation charges. Will they actually sue? I asked. I doubt it. Lawsuits are expensive and Trevor doesn't have money. That's the whole reason he wanted to move into your house. This is intimidation, but now we've shown we're not intimidated. My guess is you won't hear from him again for a while. Mr. Torres was right. After he sent the response, there was silence. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Thanksgiving came. I spent it with the Golden Girls, and we had a wonderful meal together. But there was an empty place at the table in my heart where my grandchildren should have been. Then, 2 days after Thanksgiving, my doorbell rang at 8 in the morning. It was Linda, Brianna's mother, in a wheelchair, alone. Mrs. Wilkinson, may I please speak with you? I helped her inside, made tea, and we sat in the living room. I want to apologize, she said, and I want to tell you what's really been going on. For the next hour, she told me everything. Trevor had been fired from his job 8 months ago, not reduced hours like he'd claimed. He'd been spending money on online gambling, which was why they couldn't pay rent. Brianna had been begging him to get help, but he'd refused. They'd been fighting constantly. The plan to move into my house had been Trevor's idea, pitched to Brianna as temporary, but with no real plan to leave. I told them it was wrong, Linda said. I said you deserved to be asked, not told. But Trevor said you'd never agree if he asked, so he had to present it as a done deal. He was counting on you being too passive to refuse. Why are you telling me this? Because it's wrong. Because I had a mother too, and she was taken advantage of by my brother before she died. I swore I'd never let anyone do that to an elderly person if I could help it. And because... She paused. Because Brianna is filing for divorce. She found out about the gambling, about the extent of the debts. She's taking the kids and moving to her sister's place in North Carolina. She wanted me to come too, but I have to finish physical therapy here first. I'm sorry your family is going through this. Don't be sorry. This has been coming for a long time. But Mrs. Wilkinson, I want you to know. You were right to refuse him. Trevor would have destroyed your peace. He's my son-in-law, and I care about him, but he's not well. He needs help, professional help, and he won't get it until he hits rock bottom. After she left, I sat for a long time, processing everything. My son, the boy I'd raised, had a gambling addiction, had been lying for months, was losing his family. Part of me wanted to rush in, save him, fix everything. But I knew I couldn't. This was Trevor's crisis, Trevor's choices, Trevor's consequences. I couldn't fix him. I could only protect myself. December came, and with it, a surprising visitor. Brianna pulled into my driveway with Harper and Gavin. Mrs. Wilkinson, she said, standing on my porch with the children, I owe you an apology. A massive apology. I didn't understand what Trevor was really doing, how he was treating you. I don't know what I thought, but I was wrong to go along with his plans. Come in, please. The children hugged me tightly, and my heart filled up. We spent the afternoon together. Brianna told me she was moving to North Carolina after Christmas, starting fresh. The kids were sad about moving, but resilient in the way children are. Can we still visit Grandma? Harper asked. Of course, Brianna said. Grandma will always be your grandma, and you can call her any time, and we'll visit when we can. Before they left, Brianna pulled me aside. Trevor is in counseling now. He hit rock bottom after I filed for divorce. I don't know if he'll ever be the person he should be, but maybe someday he'll understand what he did to you, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. After they left, I stood in my quiet house, my house, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. It's been 6 months now since Trevor first tried to move into my house. I still live here, independently, happily. My garden is flourishing. The Golden Girls and I walk every morning. I volunteer twice a week at the community center. Trevor and I have spoken exactly twice. Brief, painful conversations where he doesn't apologize but also doesn't ask for anything. His counselor says he's making progress, but it's slow. I hope he heals. He's still my son, but I don't trust him, and I don't know if I ever will again. Harper and Gavin video call me every Sunday. They seem happy in North Carolina. Brianna has a new job and a small apartment. She's talking about taking some night classes. She's rebuilding, and I'm proud of her. My house, the house Harold and I bought with our sweat and sacrifice, the house where I raised my children and buried my daughter's memory and mourned my husband, remains mine. My sanctuary, my castle, the new will is signed, sealed, filed. My estate is protected. When I'm gone, my grandchildren will have security, and Trevor will have enough to live on if he manages it wisely. But nobody will ever take this house from me while I'm living. I've learned something important over these months. Being a good mother doesn't mean sacrificing everything. It doesn't mean letting yourself be exploited. It doesn't mean giving up your home, your dignity, your hard-earned peace to adult children who've forgotten how to respect you. Love and boundaries can coexist. In fact, they must. Lorraine says I'm an inspiration to the other women in our group. Rita finally said no to her son Kevin last month, told him the bank was closed, that he needed to figure out his own life. She cried when she told us, but she also looked lighter, freer. You showed me it was possible, she said. You showed me that being a good mother doesn't mean being a doormat. I think about that phrase a lot. Being a good mother. I was a good mother. I loved my children, cared for them, sacrificed for them when they were young and needed me. But they're not young anymore. Trevor is 42 years old. At some point, the obligation shifts. At some point, children need to take responsibility for their own lives. Would you have forgiven them? Or would you have stood your ground like I did? Sometimes I wonder if younger people understand what it's like to be treated as invisible in your own family. To be seen not as a person with needs and rights, but as a resource to be exploited. To have the home you worked 40 years to pay for viewed as an asset your children are entitled to claim. I hope you never find out. But if you do, if someone you love tries to take advantage of your age, your kindness, your maternal instincts, I hope you remember that you have the right to say no. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to your own life, your own space, your own peace, even if you're 68 years old, even if it's your own child asking. Especially then. Because that's not selfishness. That's self-respect. And at the end of the day, when you're sitting in your own home, in your own chair, looking at your own garden as the sun sets, you'll know you did the right thing. I do.